I pulled into the parking lot of Riverside Manor, the upscale restaurant in downtown Portland where my son Brandon was supposed to be getting married. I was wearing my best Navy suit, the one I saved for special occasions. In my jacket pocket was an envelope containing a check for $1,500,000, my wedding gift to him. The parking lot was completely empty. I walked inside and found bare tables, confused staff, nobody setting up for any ceremony. My hands trembled as I dialed Brandon's number. His voice came through cold and sharp. "Oh, the wedding was yesterday. I think you missed it." Something snapped inside me. I pulled out that check right there while he was still on the line, tore it slowly into pieces, let them fall to the restaurant floor, and walked out into the afternoon Sunday. I drove home in a fog, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My mind kept replaying Brandon's words, that casual tone, like he was telling me the weather forecast. I pulled into my driveway and sat there for 10 minutes, before I could even move. Inside my house, I went straight to my desk. I grabbed my phone and started scrolling through emails, through my calendar app, through text messages. There it was. The wedding invitation Brandon had sent me 3 months ago. Saturday, June 15th. Today. I checked the date on my phone twice. Today was Saturday, June 15th. I pulled open my desk drawer, where I kept important papers. The physical invitation was right there in its cream-colored envelope. I unfolded it with shaking hands. Elegant script announced the marriage of Brandon Michael Harper and Crystal Ann Westfield. The date printed clearly: Saturday, June 15th, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Riverside Manor Restaurant. I had not made a mistake. The invitation said today. My confusion started shifting into something else. Something darker. Suspicion crawled up my spine like ice water. My phone rang. My daughter Amanda's name flashed on the screen. Amanda was from my first marriage, Brandon's half-sister. She was 35, 5 years older than Brandon. I answered and heard her crying immediately. "Dad," she said, her voice breaking. "Dad, I need to tell you something. I should have told you weeks ago." "What is it, sweetheart?" "Brandon did it on purpose." She was sobbing now. "He gave you the wrong date on purpose. The real wedding was yesterday, Friday the 14th. But he had a special invitation printed just for you with the wrong date. I saw him do it. I heard him laughing about it with Crystal." I sat down hard in my desk chair. The room tilted slightly. "What?" I could barely get the word out. "He told Crystal, let the old man show up to an empty restaurant. It'll teach him a lesson. Dad, I'm so sorry. He made me promise not to tell you. He said if I told, he'd cut me out of the family completely. But I can't do this anymore. I can't watch you get hurt like this." My chest felt like someone was standing on it. What lesson? What did I do wrong? Amanda hesitated. I could hear her breathing, trying to calm herself down. "Brandon thinks you owe him. He's been telling anyone who'll listen that you've been unfair with money. That you've kept him on too tight a leash his whole life." I closed my eyes. I had spent 40 years building my commercial real estate business from nothing. I retired 5 years ago with enough money to live comfortably and help my kids. I had been generous with Brandon his whole life. Private schools from kindergarten through 12th grade. 4 years at Stanford, then 3 years at Columbia Law School. All paid for. Not a dollar of student loans. When he graduated and got his job at Peterson and Associates, one of the best law firms in Portland, I gave him $20,000 to furnish his apartment. 3 years ago, when he wanted to buy a house, I wrote him a check for $200,000 for the down payment. And now he thought I owed him more? Amanda, I gave him everything. I know, Dad. I know. But it's never been enough for him. You know how he is. He compares himself to his friends whose parents are billionaires. He wants that lifestyle. I tried calling Brandon. The call went straight to a message saying the number had blocked me. I sent a text. "We need to talk about what you did." It showed as delivered, but no response came. 20 minutes later, Amanda called again. Her voice was urgent now, frightened. "Dad, there's something else. Brandon has been meeting with lawyers. Not anyone from his firm, different lawyers. I don't know what he's planning, but I heard him on the phone last week talking about financial stuff, legal strategy. Dad, I think he's planning something big." A chill went through me. "What kind of something?" "I don't know, but you need to be careful." I sat alone in my house. As the sun set, I looked at the photos on my mantle. Brandon at 7 years old, in his Little League uniform. Brandon at 18 graduating from high school, that proud smile. Brandon at 25 in his cap and gown at Columbia. When had my son become someone I didn't recognize? My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I opened the text message. You made a big mistake tearing up that check. You'll regret it. B. I woke up the next morning to 17 missed calls. My brother Tom had called 3 times. My ex-wife Patricia, Brandon's mother, had called 14 times. I was still staring at my phone when it rang again. Patricia, how could you? She was screaming, before I could even say hello. How could you ruin Brandon's wedding like that? Patricia, let me explain what actually happened. I don't want to hear your excuses. Brandon told me everything. You showed up drunk to the wrong restaurant and made a scene. You embarrassed yourself and you tried to ruin his special day. That's not true. Brandon gave me the wrong date on purpose. Oh, so now you're calling our son a liar? You've always been like this, Gary. Everything is always about you. You're a narcissist. You can't stand to see Brandon happy. Patricia, please listen to me. She hung up. Within an hour, I got calls from my cousin Robert, from my old friend Dennis, from Patricia's sister Anne. The story was everywhere. I finally checked my email and found a group message Brandon had sent to at least 40 people. Extended family, friends, colleagues from my old business. The email made my blood run cold. Brandon wrote that I had shown up intoxicated to the wrong venue. He claimed the wedding was at Thornton Gardens Estate, not Riverside Manor Restaurant. According to him, I had arrived at some random restaurant, ranted at the staff about how I was there for a wedding, scared some guests who were setting up for a different event, and had to be escorted out by security. He wrote that it broke his heart to say this publicly, but I had a serious drinking problem and had refused to get help for years. Yesterday was the final straw. He was cutting contact with me for the sake of his new marriage and his mental health. 2 of Crystal's cousins were quoted in the email as witnesses who had allegedly seen my behavior. I do not have a drinking problem. I barely drink at all. My father died of cirrhosis when I was 30 years old, and I watched him destroy himself with alcohol. I have maybe 3 beers a year, maybe a glass of wine at Christmas. I immediately sent an email back to everyone, explaining the truth. I attached a photo of the invitation Brandon had sent me, showing today's date, showing Riverside Manor as the location. I explained that Brandon had deliberately given me the wrong information. I explained that I had gone to the correct location listed on my invitation and found nobody there. Most people did not respond. A few did. Patricia's sister Anne called me. Gary, even if Brandon made an honest mistake with the date, what you did was cruel. You tore up a check for $1,500,000? That's vindictive. That's punishing him for a simple mistake. It wasn't a simple mistake. He did it on purpose. You don't know that. You're just angry and looking for someone to blame. She hung up too. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find a process server with a manila envelope. Gary Harper? Yes. You've been served. I took the envelope inside and opened it with shaking hands. Brandon was suing me. The lawsuit was for intentional infliction of emotional distress. It claimed that my public destruction of the wedding gift, done in front of restaurant staff and other witnesses, had caused Brandon and Crystal severe emotional trauma. He was seeking $1,500,000 in damages, the exact amount of the check. But there was more. Pages and pages of accusations, years of alleged emotional abuse, financial manipulation, controlling behavior. The lawsuit painted me as a tyrannical father who had held money over Brandon's head his entire life, who had used wealth as a weapon, who had psychologically damaged my son. I called my attorney, Roger Finch. I had known Roger for 25 years. He had handled all my business deals, my divorce from Patricia, my estate planning. Roger, I need you to look at something. I drove to his office and handed him the lawsuit. He read through it slowly, his expression getting darker with each page. This is weak legally, he finally said. You didn't do anything wrong. Tearing up your own check isn't a crime, and emotional distress cases are very hard to prove. But Gary, this is going to cost you money to defend. $50,000 to $75,000 in legal fees, probably, even though you'll likely win. So he's just trying to bleed me dry? Maybe. But there's something else here. Roger tapped the papers. This feels like an opening move, like he's building some kind of narrative. The drinking accusations, the claims of control and abuse. He's painting a picture of you. I don't know what the endgame is yet, but be careful. 2 days later, my bank called. The manager, Susan Rodriguez, asked if I could come in immediately. I drove over, and she led me into her office with a concerned expression. Mr. Harper, we've received a claim from your son regarding the $200,000 transfer you made to him 3 years ago. The down payment for his house? That was a gift. He's claiming it was a loan. He's filed paperwork stating that he wants to repay it but needs clarification on the terms. He's presented a promissory note with your signature on it, dated 3 years ago. It shows the $200,000 as a loan with 3% annual interest. My vision blurred. I never signed any promissory note. That was a gift from father to son. I don't have any documentation because gifts don't require documentation. Susan slid a paper across her desk. There was my signature, except it was not my signature. It was close, very close. Someone had practiced, but the loop on the G was wrong. The way I crossed my R was wrong. This is forged, I said. Mr. Harper, are you certain? Call the police. I want to file a report right now. Within 2 days, I had hired a forensic document examiner named Dr. Elizabeth Brennan. She was expensive, $5,000 for a rush analysis, but I needed answers. She compared the signature on the forged promissory note to dozens of genuine signatures from my business documents, my divorce papers, my tax returns. Her report was definitive. The signature was forged. She provided me with a detailed affidavit explaining the discrepancies, the pressure points, the formation of letters. I filed a police report for forgery and fraud. Brandon's response came through his lawyers. A letter stating that I was now criminally harassing my own son because I regretted being generous. The letter claimed the note was absolutely real and suggested that I was elderly and confused, that perhaps I did not remember signing it. Elderly and confused. I was 67 years old. I hiked 3 miles every morning. I did the crossword puzzle in pen. My mind was sharp, but Brandon had planted a seed. Over the next week, that seed grew. Crystal posted on social media about the heartbreak of watching a parent age and become someone you do not recognize. She did not mention my name, but she included enough details that anyone who knew our family would know exactly who she meant. The post got 200 comments, all sympathetic. My friends started calling with gentle questions. Gary, how are you feeling? Are you sleeping okay? Maybe you should see a doctor, just for a checkup. Then came the legal filing that knocked the wind out of me. Brandon filed for emergency conservatorship over my finances. The petition claimed I was no longer mentally competent to manage my own affairs. It cited the drunk incident at the restaurant, which never happened. It cited the irrational destruction of the check. It cited paranoid delusions about forgery. It claimed I had been calling family members at all hours, confused and agitated. It claimed I had forgotten important appointments and bills. All lies. Every single word. The court date was set for 3 weeks away. Roger explained what this meant. If he wins, Gary, he gets control of everything. Your bank accounts, your investment portfolio, your properties, every dollar you have. You would need his permission to spend your own money. You'd get an allowance. He would make all financial decisions. Can he actually win this? It's possible. Conservatorships are supposed to protect vulnerable people, but they get abused. If he can convince a judge you're not competent, yes, he can win. I felt like I was drowning. 2 days later, the situation got worse. I still had one active business deal, a holdover from my retirement. I was selling a small office building in Beaverton for $4,200,000. The sale was closing in 2 weeks. I was counting on that money. I had planned to put $3 million into safe investments and live off the interest. The rest would go into a trust for Amanda's kids' college funds. The buyers pulled out. I called the buyer, a development company owner named Mark Hutchinson. We had been negotiating for 6 months. Everything was set. Mark, what happened? We had a deal. He was quiet for a long moment. Gary, I got a call from someone claiming to be looking out for my interests. Who? Your son. He said you're under legal investigation. He said the property might be subject to liens and claims. He said if we bought it, we'd be walking into a legal nightmare. My hands clenched into fists. There are no liens on that property. You can check public records yourself. I did check. You're right, there's nothing. But Gary, I can't take the risk. If there's family drama, if there's legal problems brewing, I don't want any part of it. I'm sorry. The deal was dead. $4,200,000. Gone. That money was supposed to fund my retirement for the next 10 years. Amanda called me 3 days later. She told me to meet her at a coffee shop 30 miles outside of Portland. When I got there, she was sitting in the back corner, looking over her shoulder every few minutes like she expected someone to jump out at her. Dad, I'm scared. Her voice was barely a whisper. What's wrong? Brandon convinced Mom to change her will. Patricia's estate was worth about $800,000. She had always planned to split it between Brandon and Amanda. Mom's leaving everything to Brandon now. He told her, I'm conspiring with you against the family. He's cutting me out. I reached across the table and took her hand. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. There's more, Dad. He's been pressuring Mom to talk to you about your will. He wants you to leave everything to him. He told Mom that Amanda doesn't need money because her husband makes good money. He told her, I've had every advantage in life, and now it's his turn. Dad, he wants your whole estate. All $6,300,000. $6,300,000. That was everything I had built over a lifetime. My house, my remaining properties, my investments, my savings. He's not getting it, I said. I know. But Dad, be careful. He's dangerous. This isn't just about money anymore. He wants to destroy you. I drove home in silence. When I pulled into my driveway, I knew immediately something was wrong. My front door was slightly open. I walked in carefully, my heart pounding. The living room was untouched. The kitchen was fine. But my office was destroyed. Drawers pulled out, papers everywhere, files scattered across the floor. My computer was gone. The laptop I used for all my financial records, all my property documents, all my personal files, gone. I called the police. They came, took a report, dusted for fingerprints. But I knew who had done this, and I knew I could not prove it. Roger came over that night. He looked at the mess, and his face was grim. The conservatorship hearing is in 3 weeks, Gary. Without your financial records, how do we prove you're managing your affairs competently? We'll get records from the banks, from the county, from my accountant. That'll help. But this is bad. Your son is 3 steps ahead of us. After Roger left, I sat in my destroyed office and looked at the empty space where my computer had been. Brandon was not just trying to take my money. He was trying to take my entire life. He wanted me declared incompetent. He wanted control of everything. He wanted me powerless. And I was starting to think he might actually succeed. The 3 weeks before the conservatorship hearing were the worst of my life. Roger and I worked 12 hours a day, reconstructing my financial records. We got bank statements going back 10 years. We got property records from the county. We got tax returns from my accountant. We built a case showing that I was completely competent, that I managed my finances carefully and intelligently. But I knew Brandon was building his own case. The hearing was on a Tuesday morning in Multnomah County Circuit Court. I wore my best suit again, the same one I had worn to the empty restaurant. Roger sat beside me at the defendant's table. Brandon sat across the aisle with his legal team. 2 lawyers in expensive suits. Crystal sat behind him in the gallery. Brandon's lead attorney was a woman named Laura Dixon, about 50 years old, sharp-eyed and confident. She stood and called Brandon to the witness stand. Brandon looked good. Handsome, well-dressed, composed. He was a lawyer himself. He knew how to present in court. Laura led him through his testimony. Brandon spoke about how worried he had been about me for months. How I had started forgetting things, getting confused. How I had called him at strange hours, sometimes not making sense. How I had accused him of things that never happened. The wedding incident was the breaking point, he said. I had shown up drunk to the wrong location, made a scene, terrified staff. When he tried to explain my mistake gently, I had lashed out in rage and destroyed his wedding gift. It broke my heart, Brandon said, and I saw tears in his eyes. Real tears. Or he was a better actor than I thought. My father is not the man he used to be. I just want to protect him from himself. Laura called Crystal to the stand next. Crystal testified that I had sent her threatening messages. I had texted her once, 2 days after the wedding, asking if we could talk. That was it. One text. Crystal, can we please talk about what happened? I'd like to understand. She claimed that text felt threatening, that she was frightened of me. Then Patricia took the stand. My ex-wife looked older than I remembered. We had not seen each other in person for 2 years. Patricia testified that I had changed, that I seemed confused and angry, that I had called her multiple times late at night, sometimes forgetting we had already talked. This was a lie. I had called her 3 times total, all at reasonable hours, trying to explain what Brandon had done. But she made it sound like I was calling her at 2 in the morning, rambling incoherently. When it was my turn to testify, Roger walked me through everything. I explained the deliberate wrong date on the invitation. I showed the forged promissory note and Dr. Brennan's analysis. I explained how Brandon had been systematically building a false narrative about me. But Laura Dixon was good. She attacked me on cross-examination. Mr. Harper, is it true you destroyed a check for $1,500,000? Yes. But let me explain why. Just yes or no, please. You destroyed it? Yes. In a public place? Yes. In front of witnesses? Yes. Would you say that was a rational decision? In the circumstances, yes. My son had deliberately humiliated me. So you admit you were angry? Of course I was angry. Angry enough to destroy $1,500,000 on impulse? It wasn't an impulse. It was a decision. A decision made in anger. Mr. Harper, do you have a history of anger issues? No, I do not. But you just admitted to making a significant financial decision based on anger. Roger objected, but the damage was done. Everything I said, she twisted. I started to feel like maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe I was the problem. The judge was a man named Ronald Kimball, about 60 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He listened to 3 hours of testimony, reviewed documents, and then took a 15-minute recess to make his decision. When he came back, my heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I've reviewed all the evidence presented, Judge Kimball said. This is a difficult case. Mr. Harper appears coherent and capable in this courtroom. However, the pattern of behavior described by multiple witnesses is concerning. I'm not prepared to grant full conservatorship at this time. Relief flooded through me. However, the judge continued, and my relief evaporated. I am granting a limited conservatorship for a period of 6 months. Brandon Harper will have authority over major financial decisions exceeding $10,000. Gary Harper will retain control over day-to-day expenses and decisions under that threshold. We'll review this arrangement in 6 months. Roger whispered to me, "It's not as bad as it could be. We'll appeal." But I felt crushed. My own son now had legal control over my financial life. I could not sell property, make investments, or access most of my own money without his permission. Brandon smiled at me across the courtroom. It was not a kind smile. 2 days later, an envelope arrived at my house via certified mail. Inside was a contract with Meadowbrook Senior Living, an assisted living facility. Brandon had signed papers committing me to move there. The facility cost $8,500 per month. Brandon had already paid the first month using money from my account, which he now controlled. I called Meadowbrook immediately. "This is Gary Harper. I received a contract for residency. There's been a mistake. I'm not moving there." The director, a woman named Mrs. Patterson, sounded confused. "Mr. Harper, your son was very clear. He has medical documentation from your physician stating you need supervised care. We're expecting you to move in 1 week from today." I never agreed to this, and my doctor never wrote any documentation. I called my doctor, Martin Chen. "Marty, did you write a letter recommending I move to assisted living?" "Gary, what? No, absolutely not. You're one of my healthiest patients. Someone forged a letter on your letterhead." Marty was furious. He said he would contact Meadowbrook immediately and report the forgery. But Roger explained the problem. "Gary, Brandon has limited conservatorship. He has the legal right to make decisions about your living arrangements if he believes it's in your best interest. We can fight this, but it'll take weeks, maybe months. In the meantime, he can force you to move. I'm 67 years old. I'm healthy. I don't need assisted living." "I know, but he's using the legal system as a weapon." Over the next week, Brandon moved fast. He sold my car, claiming I should not be driving. He put my house on the market for $1,200,000, claiming the proceeds were needed to pay for my care. I watched my life being dismantled piece by piece. My friends distanced themselves. Most of them believed Brandon's story. A few called to check on me, but the conversations were awkward. They did not know what to believe. Amanda called me every day, but even she could not stop what was happening. Then Brandon took the last thing I had left. He filed for a restraining order against Amanda on my behalf, forging my signature on the petition. The filing claimed Amanda was harassing and manipulating me, taking advantage of my diminished mental state. A judge granted a temporary restraining order. Amanda was now legally prohibited from contacting me or coming within 100 yards of me. When she called to tell me, she was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her words. "Dad, I can't even talk to you. If I call you, I'll be arrested." "This isn't your fault, sweetheart. How is he doing this? How is he getting away with it?" "I don't know." I sat alone in my house, knowing I only had 3 more days before the movers came. Brandon had hired a company to pack my belongings. I was not even allowed to do that myself. On moving day, 2 men with a truck showed up at 8 in the morning. They were polite but firm. They had a legal court order. They started packing my things into boxes while I stood in my own living room feeling like a ghost. Brandon arrived at 10 o'clock. He walked through my house, checking on the movers' progress, making sure they packed everything correctly. "Dad, this is all for your own good," he said. His voice was gentle, but his eyes were cold. "You'll be comfortable at Meadowbrook. They have activities, social events. You'll make friends. And don't worry about your money. I'll manage everything very carefully. You're stealing my life. I'm protecting you from yourself. Maybe if you'd been more generous when I needed you, we wouldn't be here. You always kept such tight control over everything. You made me beg for every dollar. Now it's my turn to be in control." The truth finally came out. This was not about protecting me. This was about revenge. Brandon felt I had not given him enough, had not handed over my entire fortune when he wanted it. So now, he was taking it all. The movers finished at 2 in the afternoon. Brandon drove me to Meadowbrook in his car. I sat in the passenger seat, not speaking, watching my neighborhood disappear in the side mirror. Meadowbrook was a low-brick building surrounded by lawn. It looked clean and well-maintained, but it was still a warehouse for old people. I was 67. I should have had another 20 years of active, independent life ahead of me. My room was small. A bed, a dresser, a chair by the window, a bathroom I would share with another resident. The walls were beige. Everything smelled like disinfectant. Brandon left after 30 minutes. "I'll visit you every week, Dad. I promise." I sat on the edge of the bed after he was gone. I looked around at this tiny room that was now my entire world. I had built a fortune over 40 years. I had worked 80-hour weeks, sacrificed time with my family, built something I was proud of, and now it was gone. I lay down on the narrow bed, and for the first time in 50 years, I cried. Not quiet tears, deep, wrenching sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for everything I had lost. I cried for the son I thought I had, who turned out to be someone I did not know at all. When the tears finally stopped, I stared at the ceiling and wondered if this was how my life would end. Alone, powerless, forgotten. 2 months passed. 2 months of living in a facility designed for people who needed help with basic tasks. I was surrounded by residents with dementia, with mobility issues, with serious health problems. The staff treated me the same way they treated everyone else. Like I was incompetent. Like I could not remember to take my pills or find my way to the dining hall. Every day was the same. Wake up at 7. Breakfast in the cafeteria at 8. Terrible food. Overcooked and bland. Activities in the common room. Bingo. Chair exercises. A movie from 1980-something. Playing on a small television. Lunch at noon. More sitting. Dinner at 5. Back to my room by 7. I was allowed 1 hour of computer access per day, in the common room. Supervised. My phone was monitored. Brandon claimed it was for my safety, to make sure I did not get scammed or confused. I gained 15 pounds from the awful food and lack of real exercise. I felt myself slipping into depression, the kind that settles into your bones and makes every day feel gray. My roommate was a man named Arthur Bailey, 79 years old, former accountant. Arthur had suffered a stroke 2 years ago that affected his left side. He walked with a cane, and his left hand did not work well. But his mind was sharp as a razor. We started talking in the evenings. At first, just small talk. Then, over weeks, real conversation. I told him everything. The wedding, the lawsuit, the conservatorship, Brandon's systematic destruction of my life. Arthur listened carefully. One night, after I finished explaining about the forged promissory note and the stolen computer, he said something that changed everything. "Your son is running a classic elder abuse con. Financial exploitation. I've seen it before. My sister-in-law went through something similar with her stepson. They use the legal system as a weapon. Conservatorships, power of attorney, forged documents. It happens more than people realize. How do I stop it? Let me think about it." Arthur tapped his cane on the floor. "I may be stuck in this bed half the day, but my mind still works. Bring me whatever documents you have access to. Let me look at what we've got." Over the next 3 weeks, during my supervised computer time, I pulled up every document I could access online. Bank statements, court filings, property records. I shared my screen with Arthur, who sat beside me taking notes with his right hand. One afternoon, Arthur said, "The limited conservatorship the judge granted Brandon has very specific requirements. He's required to file quarterly reports with the court showing how he's managing your money. Every expense, every decision. Has he filed the first report?" I checked the court's online system. The report was due 3 weeks ago. There's nothing filed. Arthur smiled. It was the first time I had seen him smile. That's a violation. A serious one. If he's not following the legal requirements, maybe there's more he's hiding. Let's dive deeper. We spent hours every day during my computer time searching public records. Arthur guided me through databases I did not even know existed. We found Brandon's property records. He and Crystal had bought a house 8 months ago. The purchase price was $2,800,000. What's Brandon's salary? Arthur asked. He's a lawyer at a good firm. Probably $180,000 a year. And Crystal? She doesn't work. She's a yoga instructor, but just teaches a couple classes a week for fun. Maybe makes $10,000 a year. Arthur did math on his notepad. They shouldn't qualify for that mortgage, not unless they have significant assets or a very large down payment. Where did they get the money? We kept digging. We found credit card records through a people search database. Brandon had $340,000 in credit card debt. His student loans, which I thought I had paid off, still showed $175,000 outstanding. He had taken out extra loans I did not know about. Your son isn't just greedy, Arthur said. He's drowning. He needs your money to survive his own financial disaster. I managed to get Roger on the phone during a supervised call. I told him what we had found. Gary, this is good. If Brandon's violating the conservatorship terms, we can file a motion to terminate it. But we need more evidence. Can you get documentation of how he's spending your money? Over the next week, Arthur and I built a case. We found that Brandon's mortgage payment was $6,200 a month. We found records of a new car purchase, a $78,000 BMW. We cross-referenced the timing with when Brandon got access to my accounts. Then I made a phone call that revealed everything. I called Brandon's law firm, Peterson & Associates, pretending to be a potential client. I'd like to schedule a consultation with Brandon Harper. I'm sorry, sir. Mr. Harper no longer works here. My heart stopped. When did he leave? Let me transfer you to our office manager. The office manager was more helpful. Mr. Harper's employment was terminated 4 months ago. I'm not at liberty to discuss the reasons, but I can refer you to another attorney. 4 months ago, Brandon had been fired, and he never told anyone. Not Crystal, not his mother, not me. He had been pretending to go to work every day. I told Arthur. He nodded slowly. That's why he needed your money so desperately. He lost his income. He's been using your funds to maintain the illusion that everything is fine. Roger investigated further. Brandon had been fired for billing fraud. He had been padding hours, charging clients for work he did not do. The firm discovered it during an internal audit and terminated him immediately. Gary, this is criminal behavior, Roger said. If we can prove he's embezzled your money, he'll face charges. But there was a problem. I was in a nursing home, legally under Brandon's partial control. Who would believe me? Brandon had spent months painting me as confused and incompetent. I felt hope dying again. Then something unexpected happened. A nurse practitioner named Jennifer Walsh came to do my monthly health assessment. She was new to Meadowbrook, young, maybe 30 years old. She actually read my chart carefully, instead of just going through the motions. Mr. Harper, I don't understand. Your medical records show no cognitive impairment, no memory issues, no dementia markers. You're on no medications except a low-dose blood pressure pill. Your last physical shows you're in excellent health for your age. Why are you in assisted living? I looked at her for a long moment. Then I told her everything. The whole story, from the wedding to the conservatorship, to being forced into this facility. Jennifer listened, taking notes. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. This isn't right. If you're here against your will, and you don't meet the medical criteria for assisted living, that's false imprisonment. That's elder abuse. My son has legal control through the conservatorship. Limited conservatorship. I read the order. It gives him control over major financial decisions, but it doesn't give him the right to confine you to a facility you don't need. Mr. Harper, I'm a mandated reporter. If I suspect elder abuse, I'm required by law to report it to Adult Protective Services. For the first time in months, I felt something like hope. Will they listen? They have to investigate. Let me make some calls. Jennifer left. I sat with Arthur, not daring to believe this might actually lead somewhere. But then Brandon arrived for his weekly visit. He always came on Wednesday afternoons, stayed exactly 30 minutes, asked me surface-level questions about my health and whether I was making friends. This time, he saw Jennifer in the hallway, talking to the facility director. I watched through my doorway as he approached them. He was smiling, charming. He pulled out documents from his briefcase, showed them to Jennifer and Mrs. Patterson. He pointed at papers, shook his head, gestured toward my room. Jennifer looked uncertain. She glanced at me, then back at Brandon. Finally, she nodded and walked away. Brandon came into my room. His smile was gone. What did you tell her? The truth. She won't help you. I showed her the conservatorship order, the medical reports from your doctor. I explained that you have paranoid delusions, that you've been making false accusations. She thinks you're having an episode. Those medical reports are forged, just like the promissory note. Brandon leaned close to me. His voice dropped to a whisper. Dad, give it up. This is your life now. You're not getting out of here. The money is mine. The house is selling next month. Everything you built, everything you worked for, it's all mine now. Just accept it. Maybe if you're good, if you stop fighting, I'll move you to a nicer place. But if you keep causing problems, I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in this room. Why are you doing this? Because you never gave me what I deserved. You were always so careful, so controlled. You handed out money, like it was a reward for good behavior. You never just gave freely. You made me feel like I had to earn your love. Well, now I don't have to earn anything. I'm taking it. He stood up and walked out. I sat there, defeated. Jennifer was not going to help. Adult Protective Services would believe Brandon. I was trapped. Arthur rolled his wheelchair over to my bed. Don't give up yet. We're not done. But I could not see any way out. A week passed. Nothing changed. Jennifer had not filed any report. Adult Protective Services never came. Brandon had successfully convinced everyone that I was a confused old man having delusions. Arthur tried to keep my spirits up. We have evidence. We just need the right moment to use it. What moment? I'm stuck here. He controls everything. Something will break. It always does with guys like him. He's overconfident. He'll make a mistake. On Tuesday afternoon, Crystal showed up alone. This was the first time she had visited without Brandon. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes. She had lost weight. She sat down in the chair across from my bed and did not speak for a full minute. Gary, I need to ask you something. Okay. Is it true Brandon got fired from his law firm? My heart started beating faster. You didn't know? Tears filled her eyes. He told me he quit to start his own practice. He leaves every morning in his suit, says he's meeting with clients, building the business. But I found credit card bills in his car. We're $400,000 in debt. I asked him where the money is coming from, and he got angry. He said his practice is doing well, that I need to trust him. But Gary, I've never seen a single client. No one calls the house. No one emails him about cases. Where is the money coming from? This was my moment. I could tell her everything. I could turn her against Brandon, use her to destroy him. But Arthur had taught me to be strategic. Revenge was not the goal. Freedom was. Crystal, Brandon has been managing my finances through the conservatorship. Maybe some of my money has gone to help you both. I don't mind helping family. She looked at me carefully, trying to figure out if I was telling the truth or being sarcastic. How much money? I'm not sure of the exact amounts. The court requires him to file reports showing every dollar he spends. They're public record. Have you seen them? No. What reports? Quarterly accountings. Every 3 months, he has to file a detailed report with the court showing how he's managing my money. You could go to the courthouse and request copies. I was planting seeds, letting her do the work. If I told her outright that Brandon was stealing from me, she might run to him. But if she discovered it herself, she would feel betrayed. I didn't know about any reports. They should be filed by now. 2 reports, actually. One for the first quarter and one for the second. They're supposed to be public so the judge can make sure he's not misusing my money. Crystal left without saying anything else. 2 weeks passed. I did not know if she had gone to the courthouse or not. I started to think maybe she had decided to ignore everything, to stay loyal to Brandon. Then she came back. She was furious this time. Her hands were shaking. She pulled a chair right up to my bed and leaned forward. He's been stealing from you. I went to the courthouse. There are no reports filed. I talked to the clerk. She looked it up. Brandon was supposed to file 2 quarterly reports. He never filed either one. And when I pushed, when I demanded to see something, anything, she printed out your bank records that were submitted during the original conservatorship hearing. Gary, $120,000 has been transferred out of your accounts in the last 2 months. I compared the dates to our mortgage payments, our credit card payments. It's your money. He's been using your money to pay our bills. What are you going to do? I don't know. He's my husband. But this is fraud. This is criminal. Crystal, I need to get out of here. I need to be in court to fight this. If you help me, I won't press charges against Brandon. I'll let the conservatorship end quietly. But if you don't help me, I'll make sure he goes to prison. She stared at me for a long time. Finally, she nodded. What do you need? A phone. Not my monitored phone. A burner phone. Something Brandon doesn't know about. She came back the next day with a cheap prepaid phone hidden in her purse. She slipped it to me when no one was looking. That night, I locked myself in the bathroom and called Roger. Gary, I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Brandon blocked my number on your phone. I know. Roger, listen carefully. I don't have much time. I told him everything. The missing reports, the embezzled funds, the evidence Arthur and I had gathered. We need to file an emergency motion to terminate the conservatorship. But Gary, you have to be in court. Can you get there? Crystal is going to help me, but we have to move fast. If Brandon finds out, he'll move the money, destroy evidence. I'll file tomorrow morning. Emergency hearing. I'll request it be scheduled within 48 hours. 2 days later, at 2 a.m, Crystal came to Meadowbrook. She had a key to the service entrance from when she volunteered there years ago. She found my room, woke me up, and whispered, "We have to go now. The hearing is at 9 this morning." I got dressed as fast as I could. We snuck out through the kitchen, past sleeping staff, out to her car in the parking lot. We drove through the night. Crystal did not say much. I could tell she was terrified, that she was betraying her husband, that she did not know if she was doing the right thing. "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me yet. I might be destroying my marriage." "He destroyed it already. You just didn't know." We got to the courthouse at 8:30 in the morning. Roger was waiting outside. He looked shocked to see me. "Gary, you look terrible. I've been living in a nursing home for 2 months. What do you expect?" We walked into the courthouse together. The hearing was in the same courtroom as before, Judge Kimball presiding. Brandon was already there with his lawyers. He saw me walk in, saw Crystal sit down on my side of the courtroom. His face went completely white. He stood up, walked over to Crystal. "What are you doing?" "The right thing, finally." "Crystal, this is insane. Come sit with me." "No." Judge Kimball entered. Everyone sat down. The judge looked confused. "Mr. Finch, you filed an emergency motion to terminate the conservatorship?" "Yes, Your Honor. We have evidence of serious violations and embezzlement." Brandon's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. Mr. Harper has clearly escaped from his care facility. He's not fit to be here. We request an immediate psychiatric evaluation." Judge Kimball held up his hand. "Counsel, Mr. Harper is not a prisoner. He has the right to petition this court. We're going to proceed. Mr. Finch, present your evidence." Roger stood up, opened his briefcase, and began the fight that would determine the rest of my life. Roger laid out everything methodically. The missing quarterly reports that Brandon was legally required to file. The bank records showing $120,000 transferred from my accounts to Brandon's personal accounts. The mortgage payments, the credit card payments, the car purchase, all funded by my money. He presented Arthur's financial analysis, showing the timeline of transfers and how they corresponded exactly to Brandon's debts. Then Roger dropped the biggest revelation. Brandon had been fired from his law firm for billing fraud 4 months ago. He had been lying to everyone, including his wife, pretending to still have a job while he systematically drained my accounts. Brandon's lawyer tried to defend him, arguing that the transfers were legitimate expenses for my care, that Brandon had been acting in my best interests. But Roger had receipts. Literal receipts. Arthur and I had found records online. $78,000 for a BMW, $16,000 at a jewelry store, $9,000 at restaurants and bars over 2 months. None of it had anything to do with my care. Crystal took the stand. She testified about discovering the debt, about Brandon's lies, about finding out he had no job. She explained how he kept her in the dark about everything while using money that was not his to maintain their lifestyle. "I thought we were building a life together," she said, crying. "But he was building it with stolen money." Then I took the stand. I told my story. The deliberate wrong date on the wedding invitation. The forged promissory note. The systematic destruction of my reputation. Being forced into a nursing home I did not need. Watching my son steal my life piece by piece. Brandon's lawyer tried to attack me, tried to make me seem confused or vindictive, but I stayed calm. I answered every question clearly and rationally. I was not angry. I was just tired. Brandon took the stand last. He tried to claim he was protecting me, that the transfers were necessary for my care, that he had planned to file the reports, but had been too busy with work. When Roger asked him about being fired, Brandon stumbled. When Roger asked him about the BMW, Brandon said it was a necessity for his law practice. When Roger pointed out he did not have a law practice, Brandon's whole story fell apart. Judge Kimball called a 15-minute recess. When he came back, his face was stern. "I've heard enough. Mr. Brandon Harper, you have violated every aspect of the limited conservatorship granted to you. You failed to file required reports. You used your father's funds for personal expenses having nothing to do with his care. You misrepresented material facts to this court. The conservatorship is terminated effective immediately. All of Mr. Prade, Gary Harper's assets and accounts are restored to his sole control." Relief washed over me so powerfully I thought I might fall over. But Judge Kimball was not finished. "Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. Mr. Brandon Harper, you may face charges of embezzlement, fraud, and elder abuse. Conservatorships exist to protect vulnerable people, not to enable theft. What you have done is unconscionable. You abused the legal system, you betrayed your father, and you violated the trust this court placed in you." Brandon sat frozen at his table. His lawyers were gathering their papers, distancing themselves already. I could see their faces. They had not known the full extent of what he had done. Crystal left the courtroom without looking at Brandon. Roger and I walked out into the September sunshine. I stood on the courthouse steps and breathed real air for the first time in months. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you go home. You get your life back. The district attorney will investigate, and Brandon will likely be charged. That process will take months. But Gary, you're free." 2 days later, the police arrested Brandon at his house. He was charged with felony embezzlement, fraud, and elder abuse. Bail was set at $250,000. He could not make it. He sat in jail, awaiting trial. His law license was suspended pending the criminal proceedings. Crystal filed for divorce 1 week later. Over the next 2 months, I rebuilt my life. I moved back into my house. I recovered most of my money. Brandon had spent $38,000 that could not be recovered, but the rest was returned to my accounts. My car was gone, sold to someone who would not sell it back, so I bought a new one. A reliable Honda, nothing fancy. Patricia finally called me. She was crying. "Gary, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have listened. He's my son, and I wanted to think the best of him. But what he did to you was evil. He fooled all of us. Patricia, he's smart. He knows how to manipulate people. Will you ever forgive me?" "There's nothing to forgive. You were protecting your son. I understand that." Amanda came to visit me the day the restraining order was voided. She ran into my arms and we both cried. "Dad, I felt so helpless. I couldn't do anything. You tried. You told me the truth about the wedding when no one else would. That mattered." I reconnected with Arthur. He had been discharged from Meadowbrook and moved in with his daughter. We met for lunch once a week. He became one of my closest friends. "You saved my life," I told him. "You saved your own life. I just pointed you in the right direction." 6 months after the hearing, I received a letter from prison, Brandon's handwriting on the envelope. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. The letter was 7 pages long. Brandon wrote about his childhood, about always feeling like he had to compete for my attention and approval, about watching his friends' parents buy them cars and condos, and feeling embarrassed that I made him work for things, about how that shame turned into resentment, and resentment turned into entitlement, and entitlement turned into justification for what he did. He wrote, "I destroyed everything because I couldn't just accept that you loved me. I had to test it. I had to push until something broke, and what broke was me. I'm sorry doesn't even begin to cover what I did to you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I want you to know that I finally understand what I lost. Not the money. You. I lost my father because I was too selfish and broken to appreciate what I had." I read that letter 5 times. Then I drove to the county jail and requested a visitation. Brandon looked terrible. He had lost weight. His eyes were hollow. He sat across from me behind the plexiglass partition, and we picked up the phones. "You came," he said. "I got your letter. Did you read it?" "Every word." We sat in silence for a moment. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Brandon said. "What I did was unforgivable." "You're right. What you did was terrible. You tried to destroy me. You stole from me. You put me in a nursing home like I was trash to be warehoused. You turned everyone against me. You're my son, and you broke my heart in ways I didn't think were possible." Brandon nodded, tears streaming down his face. "But," I continued, "you're still my son. You did terrible things. You're going to prison, and that's where you should be. But after you serve your time, if you really change, if you do the work to become a better person, we can talk about rebuilding. I'm not promising anything." Trust is earned, Brandon. You destroyed all of it. But I won't close the door completely. Not forever. "Why?" he asked. "After everything I did, why would you give me any chance at all?" "Because somebody has to break the cycle. You hurt me because you felt hurt. If I completely cut you off, you'll just carry that pain and hurt someone else. Maybe your own kids someday. I don't want that. So I'm leaving the door open a crack. But you have to do the work. You have to become someone worthy of walking through it." I stood up to leave. "Dad," Brandon said. "Thank you." I did not respond. I just hung up the phone and walked out. 1 year after the courthouse steps, I was standing in my backyard on a Sunday afternoon. Amanda and her 2 kids were there for dinner. Her daughter Emma, who was 8, was teaching me how to play some game on her tablet. Her son Lucas, who was 6, was kicking a soccer ball around the yard. Patricia came too. We were not together, would never be together again, but we had made peace. We could sit at the same table and share a meal without anger. The news was playing on the television inside. A story about Brandon's case. He had taken a plea deal. 5 years in prison with possibility of parole after 3. Part of the deal included restitution and mandatory counseling for financial crimes and family violence. My phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated for a long moment, then answered. "Dad? It's me." Brandon's voice, calling from a rehabilitation facility where he had been transferred after accepting the plea. "I'm out of jail. I'm in a program now. They're teaching us about financial crimes, about victim impact, about taking responsibility. I graduate in 6 months. After that, I go to prison. But Dad, I wanted to call and ask if maybe, when I get out in a few years, we could meet, for coffee, just to talk. I understand if you say no." I looked at Amanda. She had heard enough to know who was on the phone. She nodded at me, giving permission, telling me it was okay. "Okay," I said. "Coffee. When you get out, we'll start there." "Thank you, Dad." "Brandon, this doesn't mean everything is fixed. You understand that, right? This is just a first step. You have a long road ahead." "I know. But at least it's a road. At least there's somewhere to go." I hung up and stood there holding my phone. Amanda came over and put her arm around me. "Are you okay?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Ask me again in 5 years." She laughed. "You're a better man than I would be." "I'm not better. I'm just choosing hope over bitterness. That's not noble. It's just survival." The sun was setting over my backyard, casting long shadows across the grass. Lucas kicked his soccer ball and it bounced off the fence. Emma laughed at something on her tablet. Patricia was setting the table inside for dinner. I had been through hell. My own son had tried to destroy me, had stolen my money, had locked me away, had turned people against me. I had spent 2 months in a nursing home feeling like my life was over. But I fought back. I found allies in unexpected places. I used the legal system that had been weaponized against me and turned it into my salvation. And I won. Not perfectly. Brandon was in prison. My relationship with him was shattered. Maybe forever. I had lost friends who never believed my side of the story. I had lost time and peace and security. But I was standing in my own backyard, in my own house, with my daughter and grandchildren, a free man with control over my own life. That was victory enough. I learned that family does not mean unconditional trust. Love, yes. But trust has to be earned and maintained every single day. I learned that standing up for yourself, even against your own child, is not cruelty. It is survival. It is necessary. I learned that the legal system can be abused by people who know how to manipulate it, but it can also be used to fight back. I learned that allies appear in unexpected places. Arthur, a roommate in a nursing home. Crystal, the daughter-in-law who chose truth over loyalty. Jennifer, the nurse who saw something wrong and tried to help, even though she was overruled. And I learned that second chances are complicated. They require boundaries. They require proof of change, not just promises. But closing the door completely, cutting someone off forever, that carries its own cost. The court asked me to speak at a seminar on elder abuse prevention 3 months after everything ended. I stood in front of 200 people and told my story. I talked about warning signs, financial requests that escalate, family members who isolate you from other relatives, legal maneuvers that seem designed to protect you, but actually control you. After the seminar, 17 people came up to me. 17 people who said they were experiencing similar situations with their own adult children or other relatives. I gave them Roger's contact information. I told them my story was not unique. Elder abuse is one of the fastest-growing crimes in America, and family members are the most common perpetrators. I found purpose in my pain. That helped. Now, standing in my backyard with my family around me, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Peace. Not happiness exactly. The wounds were too fresh for that. But peace. Acceptance. The knowledge that I had survived. That I had fought back. That I had won my life back from someone who tried to take it. That was enough. I called everyone inside for dinner. We sat around my table, the same table where I used to have holiday meals when Brandon was young, and we ate and talked and laughed. Patricia told a story about Amanda as a little girl. Amanda showed me photos on her phone of a vacation they were planning. The kids argued about who got the last dinner roll. It was ordinary. It was imperfect. It was exactly what I needed. After everyone left, I sat alone in my living room with a cup of tea. I looked at the photos on my mantle. I had taken down most of the pictures of Brandon, but I left one. Him at age 7 in his Little League uniform, smiling with a gap where his front teeth used to be. That was the son I remembered, the one I hoped might still exist somewhere under all the damage and choices. Maybe he would do the work. Maybe he would change. Maybe in 3 years, when he got out of prison, we could sit down for coffee and build something new. Maybe not a father-son relationship like before, but something honest, something real. Or maybe he would not change. Maybe the damage was too deep. Maybe he would get out of prison and disappear. Or worse, try something similar again. I did not know. I could not control it. All I could do was set boundaries, protect myself, and leave that small door open in case he ever became someone who deserved to walk through it. That was my choice to make, and I chose hope, cautious and guarded, but hope nonetheless. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever experienced a situation where someone you trusted, maybe even a family member, betrayed that trust in a devastating way? How did you handle it? Did you find a way to rebuild? Or did you have to walk away completely? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who is going through something similar. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about trust and family and second chances, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real-life struggles and the strength it takes to overcome them. And share this video with someone who might need to hear it, someone who might be facing their own battles with family conflict or elder abuse. Thank you for listening to my story. It was not easy to tell, and I know it was not easy to hear. But sometimes the hardest stories are the ones we most need to share. I hope wherever you are in your own journey, you find the strength to stand up for yourself, to fight back when necessary, and to choose hope even when it feels impossible. Take care of yourselves, protect your peace, and remember that you deserve respect and dignity, no matter who tries to take it from you.